Hi, my name's Sakarad, and my individual presentation topic for today is cultural literacy. What is cultural literacy? The definitions of cultural literacy consist of several different simple terms that arrive to a very complex phrase, cultural literacy. Culture is the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievements regarded collectively. The custom, arts, social instructions, and achievements of a nation, people, or social group. Literate, the ability to read and write. Cultural, relating to the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a social society, relating to the arts and intellectual achievements. Literacy, the ability to read and write. Competence or knowledge in a specified area. Cultural literacy. My definition of cultural literacy is the knowledge of knowing the history of one's own population or race to better perform in a productive mannerism. Cultural literacy by Eric Donald Hirsch Jr. is a term coined by E.D. Hirsch referring to the ability to understand and participate fluently in each culture. Cultural literacy in an analogy to literate properly, the ability to read and write letters. Coins. Coins is to invent or devise. Article 1. Cultural literacy and American democracy. The summary of the article's purpose was to incorporate how to improve the country's education system. The reasons behind the article was to discuss cultural literacy and the extent of education that students must have in order to understand history. Research developments. In order to achieve mastery, one must know the background of history and science. The takeaways for this article of cultural literacy and American democracy was, after I carefully reviewed and obtained an understanding of the article, there were no central ideas that needed to be taken away or abstracted. Article 2. What every American should know. The summary of the article relates to racism and its fights of integration in the education system, but still no change in the racial privileges. The reasons behind this article was the purpose behind the article is to express the known facts of deviance in the school systems and not so commonly the inability to literate, but purposefully intention to teach what, when, where, why, and how. In other words, the school system or the teachers, instructors in some of the systems are corrupt. They teach students the way they want to teach them. They allow them to learn what they want them to learn. And even though they are sharing the same classroom of different racial backgrounds, they are still coerced in the manner that they teach these students, to where some will learn some things that others will never understand or could not be taught to get. So, the summary of the article relates to racism and its fights of integration in the education system, but still no change in the racial privileges. The reasons for the article is the purpose behind the article is to express the known facts of deviance in the school systems and not so commonly the inability to literate, but purposefully intention to teach what, when, where, why, and how. Research developments. There were no common developments for the article centrally compares the ideas of E.D. Hirsch with their own personal experiences. The takeaways was the iteration of the topic as a political and democratic relation does not seem evident, nor does it appear to be relevant. The topic discussed how politically and democratically the teaching system or education system is kind of something that relates to Eric Donald Hirsch Jr. Publication of his book in 1987 titled Cultural Literacy. The course concepts integrated. The topic of this presentation specifically defines the ability to be competent and learning to do so. While the course whole platform is based on communication, communication does tend to happen in various ways. And if one is not able to understand fully how to communicate, then that would make it more difficult for them to converse. Learning the different styles of communication centralizes the capabilities of one's own abilities to literally interact. This is where the startup culture of any origination began. Here's a photo of E.D. Hirsch example of children at an age when they are asked to describe a picture while the other child on the other end chooses the picture that they're describing. And in no cases or any examples were the children able to pick out the correct picture. The personal experience. One familiar personal experience that I can relate cultural literacy to the workplace is when I was working a long time ago in retail sales. I would almost always find myself in a situation where I should have been being paid manager salaries. Even after employees training and employment there and passing their probation period, I would always find myself showing how to do something or forced to take over their job momentarily in order to do it for them to get past their stump difficult times and continue assisting customers. There's also a factor of the influence that E.D. Hirsch Jr., not directly, but possibly indirectly, may have had on a lot of different people and in many different cultures. He has an average of 3.9, 6,226 ratings, 548 reviews. And this is from a website that claims he has published over 74 books. Now, the conclusion is choosing this topic originally, I believed I would find a Black historical figure who may have someday had the exact same argument that I felt the need for in my definition for cultural literacy. Unfortunately, this was not the outcome. After developments of assignments throughout the course, I began to find out that a Caucasian male had initiated the education of what it means. Although there was conflict in my potential concept for an argument, I still felt the urge to prove that it was a lot wrong with my topic and came to a conclusion to have found none. Cultural literacy is already there as it is, and it's a coined term. Here is another photo from E.D. Hirsch's book, Cultural Literacy, where the adults are asked to do the same project, call out descriptions of pictures while the other adults on the other side, they can't see what they're seeing, can point out the pictures. And the first time they were 100% correct, and they did manage to complete the task successfully. Thank you, and that is all for my individual presentation.